You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim Coppinger, and with me today is Mr. I mean to my co-host, Rocco Parisi. So
What?
Listen, ladies and gentlemen.
Me?
Yes,
Me?
you. Rocco
Never.
was mean to me today, peoples. He really was, and I have it in writing. So I told him I was going to be late to do the podcast today, and he writes me back. He says, "Oh, are we having a bad morning, Pumpkin?" So I don't know if he was questioning my masculinity or if he was just pointing out the true fact that my body shape is generally pumpkin-like, which either way, it was mean, and I think I should report you to HR. That's my plan for them. So remind me, which one of us is HR? Is it you or is it me?
That would be me.
Okay, you need to self-report yourself and go really, really strict on you.
Okay.
Well. All right, so what are we doing? So today we're talking about Procore for design and construction. That's our topic for today, despite Rocco's meanness. Pumpkin's going to get into that. So, all right, so today I want to talk about a specific software, Procore. Procore is the leading construction management software out there on the market today. But one of the things I want to point out is that it isn't limited to only construction folks. I think there is a huge benefit for design firms to get integrated into the Procore environment as well. And I think particularly in this new economy, right, where everybody is having to find ways of streamlining and optimizing, right, just looking to improve the way that they find and deliver work. And I think that more and more here at Zentech, right, I see the rise of, IPD projects or what we call, integrated project delivery, right? It's a method of working. And that's, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, right, that's where the owner or the architect, the engineers, the GC, everybody all work together, right, from the day that the design begins to optimize and work as a group to make the project as cost efficient and as error free as they can possibly make it. And I think, the IPD model gives everybody on the team a stake in the profitability, right? Hard word to say, profitability of a project, right? So in other words, right, the less the project costs and the quicker it's done, the more money each partner in that IPD makes. And I think, with the rise of that, I think, the biggest issue that an IPD project really faces is effective communications, right? Knowing who's doing what, when, where, why, and how. That's far more important on an IPD project than it would be on a traditional DBB or a design, bid, build, right? That traditional structure that we all worked with for hundreds of years now. And I think that's where a system like Procore comes in. It's a project management system that lets every stakeholder access the design files, the meetings, the schedule, track RFIs and track bids and emails and communications, all from one central location. And this lets everybody on the job kind of keep on top of what's happening, right? And make sure that they're always working and making decisions from the latest data. So Rocco, when it comes to Procore, who really are the biggest market share that we see? I mean, I'm guessing that it's still GCs, but are you seeing a growth in the use by architects, engineers, trade contractors, folks like that?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing, but not the smaller, the real small guys. I mean, you're definitely seeing it more with the medium to large size architects and engineering firms. And why is that, Jim? I mean, it seems like they need. It seems like they're getting access to the projects, right? And so that's right. Why they really need that's why they're more involved.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. I think the size does matter because the bigger the design firm, right, the more likely you are to have larger, more complex projects, right? Two-man architectural firms tend not to get, Newark International Airport renovation jobs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Right.
when you're doing those larger projects, there's a lot more coordination and communication that has to happen than, if you're doing, your buddy Tom's house down the street. Right. So I think that really is. I mean, I think you're absolutely right that, size and the scope of the projects that you're doing does have a big impact there. I mean, I'm also going to say here, I think that we've seen a really big growth in people implementing Procore just over the last year due to the pandemic. I think and again, like I said, the particularly the large firms, but I think that with so many of them having to close down offices and work from home and stagger schedules for when staff can and can't be on site. I think the need for a centralized system that lets everybody collaborate and track changes and progress has become really, really important. I think it's also a real positive in Procore that it lets everybody host the latest and the greatest design files, right? Both the construction drawings and the specifications in one location that is securely accessible by everybody that's working on that project. One of the biggest stumbling blocks on a construction job, I think, is having people bid or refer to, or worst of all, actually build off of an out-of-date design document. And I think in the new work structure, that getting a roll of drawings and dropping them on the back seat of your truck just can't work anymore. Construction jobs, right? Particularly those larger commercial projects that that we were just talking about, they're just too complex and they change too frequently. All right, to allow for a set of documents that's really older than a week. You can't look at something from last week. It's not going to be accurate anymore. It changes that quickly. And I think that project management systems like Procore are really the only effective answer to that. Having designers who either integrate into the general contractor's Procore portal, or what we're seeing in a lot of cases, right? Architects and designers who are hosting the project data themselves as part of that IPD contract is becoming much more the norm in today's construction world. So Rocco, right? We're certified Procore consultants here at Zentech, right? It means we work with folks to set up and configure Procore for their company's needs. We do a lot of consulting in that arena. What is the big driver that you're seeing for that? Is it folks just making the move to Procore, or is it firms that already have it but that need help getting it to work the way that they need it to? Where's that big chunk of work coming from?
No, it's the people that have it and need the help with the configuration and setup, because Procore is a great package, but there's time that's involved, and we're going to get a little bit deeper into that now, right? But there's time that's involved to setting it up, to making Procore work for you. So it's we were happy to sell it and to work with Procore to sell it, but much of what we see is around the configuration and setup.
Right. And do you think that there's fewer folks right now who are willing to kind of make that investment in a new system, or do you just because of the current environment, or you just think that it's just the way it's always going to be?
No, I look, there's going to be downturns and upswings in the economy regardless, and there's definitely firms that are investing in it, and if it's the right tool and it's going to save you time and money in the long run, you're still going to find a way to invest in it, because everybody's looking to save time and money in a bad economy or a great economy.
Yeah, even more so in a bad economy, right? So, all right. So, like I've said to our listeners before, right, on the podcast, we try not to push the things on here that we sell here at Zentech. But once in a while, right, the things that we sell do coincide with what is important in the industry, so we need to talk about it. To be fair, I think that's probably a good thing, right? Rocco and I, we look to rep and support tools and processes that we feel work best for our client base. And we've worked with other construction management systems in the past, right? And they were really good systems. But we moved away from supporting them directly, mainly because of their complexity, Now, don't get me wrong, right? Yeah, Procore can be a really complex system. It has a whole lot of configuration and customization capabilities that are built into it. So it really can be it's easy to get lost down that rabbit hole if you're not careful. But even with that, right? We became Procore partners because it's a system that's really easy to use. In other words, once you have it set up, the end users, right, i.e. your field guys and gals, they just have to point and click. All right, and that I think is what drew us to the system in the first place, right? It's easy to use on a daily basis, and it's been developed from the ground up as a construction-friendly system. And Rocky, I know you've heard me say this before, right? The best description I've come across on Procore versus any of the other older CM systems we used to rep was that that the older system that we rep was an accounting system that had some construction features, whereas Procore is a construction management system that has some good accounting tools. So I think that's a major benefit. So,
and you're not the only one that said that. I've heard that. I've heard a number of folks say that.
Yeah, it's becoming kind of a common catchphrase when it comes to Procore. So where do Rocco? Where do the clients see Procore on that ease of use scale? Is that just my impression, or is that what you're hearing too? And also I'm wondering how much benefit do folks really see in like the mobile capabilities of Procore, right? Do as many people work with it off of their phones as they think they do?
Yeah, from the user end, folks really like it. I mean, they once they learn how to use it, they're really happy with it, and I don't hear very many people complaining about it. The mobile friendliness, I think, is one of the big selling points of Procore, is that it has that flexibility to really be able to use it out in the field and to make changes real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that to me, like I said, has always been one of the big keys here, is that it is so easy to use on your phone. It's designed not just like, hey, it shows in the web browser on your phone. It's actually got a fully integrated mobile app. And for a lot of people out in the field, that's really their only direct access or direct communication mean is through the cell phone, right? They don't always have, 2-in-1s or tablets or whatever, with Wi-Fi hotspots out there. But pretty much in this day and age, for the most part, we always have our phones in hand, and we can always use that. So I'm a big fan of that aspect of it too. All right, so I tell you what, let's catch a quick break here to hear from today's sponsor. And then when we get back, I want to get into a little bit of the process of getting Procore into your company and how to get that set up. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today we are our own sponsor. This is Jim and Rocco with ZenTech Consultants. And what do we want to talk to the folks about today, Rocco?
We're going to talk about how to make barbecue meatballs. How does that sound, Jim?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So we're here to talk about our Procore services. We are Procore certified consultants here. So, Jim, what kind of services do we offer?
So when it comes to your Procore software, we're here to help you guys with just about everything you need, from getting it set up, configuring it to your needs, importing your client database and your previous contracts, structuring reports, or even just helping you guys on the daily with the the workflow and the things that you have to do on a regular basis in terms of timesheets, and really just about anything from, like we said, setup and configuration all the way through advanced training for all of your staff on how to use Procore in the method and the way that works best for your firm. So, Rocco, if folks need a little bit of help with Procore, how do they reach us?
Yeah, you can reach us. Hit up our website. We have a new website. It's zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or give us a call, 866-824-4459. Or drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
All right, and if you call now, Rocco will tell you how to make meatballs. All right, folks, we'll talk to you later. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We are talking about Procore today, and in this segment, I want to talk about a little bit, at least, what it takes to get Procore up and running within your firm. So for starters, I want to point out, right, that we don't actually sell the software here at ZenTech, right? We're supporting a consulting specialist for Procore, which means that, we help folks set it up and train on it, and we get almost no benefit from your buying Procore directly. Well, maybe we get a little bit of benefit from that, though. Honestly, I'm not sure how. So, Rocco, I know we're referral partners or whatever they call it over at Procore, right? And I think that means we get something for referring clients to Procore, right? How does that work?
Yeah, that's true. So if you're looking to purchase Procore, or feel free to reach out to us. And we work with Procore. We're involved from the sales side to educate you on what Procore can do. Set up demos and such. And we honestly get a piece of the deal once it's all finalized and done. But Procore Direct is involved in really, showing and demonstrating the product. Where our core value comes in is on the training and configuration and setup end, like Jim said.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So if you all want to help out your local friendly podcast hosts, feel free to touch base with us. Maybe we get a little extra money, and I can stop working and getting insulted and called pumpkin because I'm working on Saturdays. But that's all right. I can live with it. All right. So let's get back to Procore then. All right. So the key with Procore is that it's a web-based system, right? It means that your data is hosted in the cloud and accessed either primarily through your web browser or via the mobile apps on your phone. And there are a few desktop tools for Procore, but those are primarily for helping tech folks like me automate setup procedures and such. So let's talk about the setup for a minute. The thing that I like is that it's really easy on the back end to bulk import data into Procore. In other words, if you're brand new to Procore and you've got a client or partner list of a few thousand companies and you got dozens and dozens of contacts for each company, I can import all of those in one shot, right? So that they're available, right? As usable partners that you can collaborate with on every single job. I can even preset permissions for each one of those contacts, right? So that who can open, who can modify, who can delete files, what processes and approvals they can be part of, when they get notifications, things like that. And we can import project data and files in the same way. Right? And I think that's important because if you have active jobs running today or completed projects that are likely to come back a year or so down the road, it's very easy to do mass data imports with Procore. From the back end, I think whether you're doing it on your own or if you're working with a consultant like Zentech, Procore has a lot of tools that make it very easy to convert to it without a massive time and effort investment in getting that existing data imported into your system, which I think is brilliant. Rocco, is that really the big selling point that I think it is? Do a lot of the clients that we work with, do they have the need to bring existing data into their new Procore systems, and do they need help getting that going?
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of the conversations that we have and part of what we do. Okay. It's no matter how you slice it, I think a lot of firms try to minimize the tools, the applications that you use, but it's not a one and done kind of thing, right? I mean, how many firms do you know that are just using one package and that's it?
Yeah, would be
it
nice.
Doesn't happen.
Nope, no, it doesn't. Yeah, and like I said, I think that's always a point of hesitation for people making a switch to any new software. Is what about all the work I've already done? What about everything I've done for the last 10 years? So I like I said, on the tech side, that's always one of the first questions I always have to address. So that I think is a real benefit here. And I think one of the other things that I really like about Procore is that it was designed for customization. In other words, right, when you need specific folder structures or custom reports that are standard for your company, or you have timesheets that you want to use, or you have want to build dashboards or communication and workflow processes about who gets notified about what and what's going on. The benefit here in Procore is it was designed so that you don't need to get involved in hiring coders, all right, or trying to get the developers to add a new feature in the next release. Every module in the Procore system is really designed around letting each company structure it the way that they need their end users to access and work with it. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is that you can make Procore work the way that you do, instead of making your users learn to work the way the software tells them they should. And that sounds like a simple concept, right? But it's really important, and it's actually one that is not very common in the software world. You can take in Procore, you can take the forms that you've spent years developing, right, or the approval processes that your timesheet has to go through every day, and you can adjust Procore so that you can keep your staff using the tools and the processes that they already know. And look, I'm not saying that's absolutely 100% true. There's always some level of learning and conflict with any new system, but Procore actually actively tries to engage that way, and it comes pretty close to being completely successful. So, Rocco, how important is this adaptability to our of Procore for our client processes, right? Do we have a lot of people who are looking to customize and configure Procore, or do we find that they're mostly okay with kind of the out of the box install?
No, it's hard to change people's ways, right? Like we all know that. No matter what you do, what industry you're in, your age, we all. It's just hard to change the way that we do things, and so to have a package like Procore where it can adapt to you versus making you change is huge, but it's important to look at those processes, right? How do you do things? Because there is a need to change. I mean, just because you've been doing it 20 years the same way, that doesn't mean that it's the right way, or that doesn't mean that you can't change it. Right. So that's a little bit further of what we're going to talk about here, right? The need to document your processes and to really evaluate, can you make reasonable changes? But overall, people like the fact that you're not coming in saying, okay, we're going to flip the table upside down now, and you're going to sit on the opposite side of the table.
And learn a whole new process from scratch. Yeah,
right.
Good point, right? So, that's actually the perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next, right? Which is, look, Procore, it's an easy-to-use system, right? Like I said earlier, it's particularly for the end users. But that does not mean that it's always a 1, 2, 3 process to get it set up. This system and most systems, it requires an investment of time before rolling it out, right? And that means a lot of planning time. One of the mistakes I think people make when they're trying to implement a system as far-reaching as Procore is that they just want to turn it on, right? Like they're hitting a light switch, right? And just let people go to work. Look, we can get it to look and react like that at the point of use, but there's a lot of effort that goes into getting that switch to work, right? Look, for most of us, light switches are just a press button process, right? You just, we hit the button, the light comes on. Easy, right? But there's a lot of time and planning and prep and effort that goes into getting the power to come on when you hit your light switch. And Procore is exactly the same. You need to spend time in advance, right? Planning, discussing, testing all these customizations and configurations that you need, and have them in place for your users before you have them start using it. And really the biggest step here is the planning. One of the issues you'll need to resolve is your internal workflow processes. Now, look, I'm sure everybody listening thinks that what your internal processes are. You are the owner of the company, and Yeah, I promise you don't. Right? In decades of working in this industry, I have never, and I mean not even once, have I run across a client who knows their firm's work process completely. Right? Most of us know what we do and how we do it, and we are completely shocked to learn that other people in our company, even in our own department, use a completely different process, and that we didn't even realize what 10% of their process is. Right? Humans in general I think we know what we know, and we ignore all the rest. And that will not work when you're setting up an enterprise system like Procore. You're going to need to invest time, right, in developing, like Rocco was saying earlier, a written process and getting everybody in the company to agree to them. Good luck with that one, right? One of the biggest issues I think that I see on our consulting project, any projects really, is that almost no company has one way of doing anything. Every executive, every manager, everybody in charge does things their own way, right? Which, AKA that's the right way, right? Everybody knows they're doing their things the right way, and they are not willing to change it. Right? And we all know that I'm the only one around here who does everything the right way. Rocco is a complete mess. I'm just saying. Okay. Oh, easy there, pumpkin. Don't start with me today.
Now you're talking about who's mean.
Yeah, that's true. I am mean. That's fair. I'll report myself to you later. So, yeah, but look, we all do what we do, and we think that we're right, and we don't want to change. But when you're dealing with a centralized system like Procore, it lets you set up a primary workflow system, and it has a lot of flexibility, right? But generally, it's going to be a single process, and you're going to have to know how do you communicate, who do you communicate with, who do you share files with, how do they approve them, right? You've got to know that whole workflow from start to finish and every step along the way before you even begin setting up a project, for rollout. So Rocco, how much do you run across that? How many clients are surprised by the amount of planning that goes into a consulting job like a Procore setup?
I think once people are into it, they realize that the reasoning behind it, but up front they don't always think it through. But it's critical. It's critical. I mean, you don't just want to slap something against the wall and then okay, now let's work with this. You got to make it work for you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I think the best way to address the setup of an enterprise level system like Procore is to have a committee. All right, you don't want it's not going to work with just one person saying this is the way it's going to go. You need a committee of people who have the ability to propose, to test, and to approve. And I can't stress that last word enough, to approve processes for the company. And look, obviously for a lot of firms, it will be helpful to have a consultant, and if you need one, may I recommend Zentech. But having a consultant to help guide you on what issues and what processes you need to take care of and how to simplify the setup, and that's great. But after that, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to run through test cases before you roll this out. Whether you want to use a copy of a completed job as a sandbox that your committee can get into and test and play with and break things and see what works and what doesn't. Or if you just want to set up a dummy project, right? So people can start importing and setting things up from scratch like they would on the new job, right? Or both, right? That's great, right? And the other thing I'll say there is you want, like I said, your committee to be able to do that, but you also want to get some end users, people who are on the daily front lines, some field folks, right? Some CAD people, some designers, some supervisors, people who actually use the system, right? Don't trust it to the committee to make all the decisions. You do need the day-to-day operators in there as well. And the key is that it's got to be tested extensively, right? And you do not want to make the mistake of trying to push a system like Procore out into production without extensive testing first. So Rocco, have we ever seen, or have you ever seen a client successfully implement Procore, or really any big software system for that matter, without extensive testing before the rollout?
No, I mean, it goes back to, like I said before, you don't want to just, throw it against the wall and just have everybody jump at it, have their hands into it. I mean, you gotta test it, make sure that it works for your workflow, your needs, your issues, because if you don't test, you run into scenarios where everybody is just unhappy and bitter, and then you put out money and you don't have uh, you don't have a successful implementation.
Right.
It just becomes a mess.
Yeah. That's exactly it, right? And I think that sometimes, the software developers and sales folks kind of over-represent what the out-of-the-box software can do, right? We tend to get shown the nice, happy, perfect end product, right, that has already been tested and vetted for dozens and dozens of presentations before we saw it, right, where they ironed out all the bugs, and then when we go in and just, hit the switch, the light doesn't come on for us, right? To bring it back to my earlier analogy. So, all right. So, look. So this topic is actually taking much longer than I thought it was going to. And I'm looking at the time, and I know we need to kind of wrap it up for today. Even though, honestly, we've kind of really barely scratched the surface here on Procore. Not to worry, though, folks. I think we can always do a part 2 or maybe even a part 3 discussion on Procore down the road. And we get into more of the setup and implementation there, and I think that's a good thing, right? I'm always looking for good topics to keep Rocco and I going. So, all right, I think with that, Rocco, unless you want to bounce anything else out here, we can wrap it up for today.
No, we're good, Pumpkin.
All right, sweetheart. All right, we're gonna get out of here, folks, before we come to blows. All right, everybody, we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.